So let's talk about trauma bonds and how that kind of relates to taking the stairs, I guess. I'm going to go over basics again. How does a trauma bond form? I mean, that's a question, right? Because it's a bit like a riptide. Once you're in it, getting out of it is not easy. And the more anxious and confused you get, the more likely, in a riptide and in a trauma bond, you may exhaust yourself and drown. Again, pretty similar. And a riptide, like a trauma bond, sneaks up on you. I prefer to think about trauma bonding in two ways: what happens in childhood and what happens in adulthood. For many folks who have had to navigate narcissistic relationships, it all began in childhood. One or maybe both narcissistic parents or other primary caregivers were the issue. And these trauma bonds that start in childhood have much deeper origins in attachment, survival, and safety. There's less rationality here and more primal survival at play. A child needs to find something to attach, someone to attach onto, to at least one caregiving figure, and to feel safe, right? And those things can get thwarted in a family of origin system characterized by narcissism. The child then becomes a sort of prospector, finding the tiny little flecks of good and a sea of not good, so they can maintain a healthy schema of a parent to attach onto. And the child will also maintain control in this situation by blaming themselves and taking responsibility for mistakes that were really not mistakes, so they can try to be better. And then the child can believe, if I fix myself, then things will be better. This sets into place a complex set of justifications and rationalizations and attempts to be better and to achieve, and for perfectionism, anything to be seen or be noticed and feel safe in this relationship. The child may also try to make themselves useful, fulfilling the parent's needs, acting as a mini shrink, and being parentified so they can be as convenient as possible for the parent. And the child, in essence, shrinks themselves so as to not be a bother, not be a competition to the parent, and slowly but surely the child gets stripped of their capacity to express a need or a want or an aspiration. Because if they do those things, it would threaten attachment. And when they do those things, the child then has to face the parent's rage or criticism for not being grateful or being demanding. And ultimately, the child is subjugated to the parent's needs and wants. But for the child, that relationship has to exist. Children can't divorce their parents. And most adults around children in situations like this, even non-narcissistic adults, rarely take notice or support the child or validate the child's experience. In these situations, children can go in one of two directions. Some kids just remain subjugated, caught in a perpetual loop of trying to please and appease and soothe the narcissistic parent or parents, or becoming what they want them to be, and often feeling perpetually stuck as a result. Some children rebel, figuring out that they cannot be what their parent wants, and may find themselves in self-sabotaging and self-soothing behaviors like acting out. I guess the idea of bad attention is better than none. Substance use, sexual acting out, self-harm, disordered eating, turning to anyone who will give them attention, even if they're dangerous. And many kids do a little of each, and struggling with sense of self and self-esteem and self-appraisal, and may do some rebellion, but still be caught in a loop of still trying to get the parents' approval, and may still hold on to the tiny flecks of hope the parent gives them, only to be disappointed again. And the cycle persists. So take a breath. This is a little bit different than the person who encounters their first trauma-bonded relationship in adulthood. It may not feel as primal, but it sure as hell feels unsafe and destabilizing and confusing. When the love bombing, whatever form it takes, converts into devaluation and discard and the mix of really bad stuff and then not as bad stuff and even good stuff, any empathic person will rationalize and justify and try to see the situation in the relationship from sort of a 360-degree perspective. You may say, well, they're stressed, or they're just going through a lot right now, or maybe it was a misunderstanding, or oh, they do sometimes help out and cook dinner, or but they don't really mean it, or they just sort of feel insecure right now, and you may be pulled in two directions. There are reasons and even things that happen in the relationship that might leave you wanting it to work, right? This person may have future faked you, and you may want to believe the thing that they're faking you about. You've been gaslighted, so you actually do think you're to blame for a lot of what's going wrong. Other people may think that this narcissistic person in your life is a nice person, so that's going to confuse you further. And you find yourself in a relationship where you are ruminating, confused, anxious, hypervigilant, angry, but also afraid at the thought of it ending. And if they do end it, you may find yourself wishing you could have it back, even though you know it's good that it's over. And obviously, if you had both childhood and adulthood experiences of trauma bonding, which is lots of people, you can see how it multiplies and magnifies and can make it feel impossible to get unstuck. Now, that was meant to be just an overview, but trauma bonding is complicated, so there's no sort of quick and dirty way to explain it. But especially in adult relationships, where your rational mind knows that this relationship is a mess, but your emotional feeling mind feels you can't live without this person, how does this happen? It's not as though one day a person was completely infatuated with you and love bombing you, and then the next day they're cheating on you and gaslighting you. It's a bit of a gradual progression. And the best way to view these processes is think of them as steps or stairs. I think it prefers just to think of them as steps or stairs that are going down. A step is flat for a little while, and then it drops significantly, and then it's flat for a while, and then it drops, right? That right there, folks, is the trauma-bonded relationship. It runs normally for a while, whatever normal may be in one of these relationships. Normal may simply be someone not screaming or cheating or cursing or being mean. But what is inevitable in these relationships is that something goes wrong. The flat normal period plummets. And now you're lower on the staircase. And again, it may stay flat for a while because the narcissistic person may give you a pseudo apology, or because you choose to let it go because you aren't ready for the relationship to end, and the relationship finds a new flat normal until something goes wrong again. And here is what to be clear on, and why the stair or step metaphor is so important. The stairs keep going down. The relationship keeps deteriorating. So even when you land on a new phase of seeming normal, the relationship has eroded. It is less safe. There's lots of accumulated wounds. Your justifications may be more robust, but their behavior, again, may be worse. There's going to be less trust. There is more hurt. You may now be angrier at yourself for staying and also confused about leaving, and also blaming yourself more. But the trauma bonding may also magnify, because just as you dropped a level and the relationship is worse, the return to what feels like that flat normal, even though it's definitely worse than the prior step, it can leave you feeling more stuck. The greatest analogy I have ever been given on this is by Rebecca Humphreys, an actor and a writer, and I've shared it here on this channel before. And she shared that when you meet the narcissistic person, love bombing is like being whisked up to the top of a 100-floor building. You're dizzy from going up so fast and taking in the view and feeling like the world just belongs to the two of you. And then you're up at the top enjoying the view, and they push you off the top of the building. And as you plummet off the top of the building, filled with terror, they catch you just before you hit the ground. And you're so grateful to them for saving your life that you forget that they're the reason you fell. And they say things like, of course I'd catch you. You were just a little careless up there and you tripped. And you believe them because after all, they caught you. And that's how it begins. They are both your abuser and your rescuer, and frankly, your blamer. So many people feel foolish when they are in a trauma-bonded situation, as though somehow they should be strong enough to see the mess that it is and leave, or afraid about how will they live without the narcissist. What if they change for the next person? And over time, you may even become secretive about how badly the relationship is going and not tell friends or family who can't understand why you keep complaining or are confused and why don't you just do something. Because it's not simple or easy. And attachment and hope are powerful things, and they confuse the hell out of us. But trust me, this is a staircase that keeps going down, and heaven knows how deep this thing goes. So be sure to have some validating spaces so you don't get lost as that staircase climbs lower and lower. And yes, it is a steep climb back up, but you are strong enough to do it. And those of you who watch this long, I'm going to share a little nightmare I had once, because it's kind of long ago, inspiration for the video, and then something else happened. So I had a nightmare 6 or 7 months ago, and in the nightmare, I was going down to what was going to be like a job, like a research job. And I was going down all these switchbacks, but they were steps, like it was a trail, like you'd hike on, but there were steps. There were very clearly steps. And I'm going down further and further and further. And then the thing bottomed out. It was like dirt floor. And then I opened the door, and I'm going into this place, and there's no windows, and it's kind of low ceiling. I'm actually pretty claustrophobic. And I was like, wait a minute. Are you telling me that to get anything I need, I have to go up all that again? And the people are like, yeah, like that's how this works, you know, and I have to stay down here for long periods of time. But the only way to see the light to be open and things, I'd have to go all the way back up. And in the dream, I was like, oh, hell no. And I have a bad leg. So I started to climb back up. So the dream was sort of prophetic. Maybe it was sort of the healthy part of me saying, no, 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 you're not staying down here. Either way, gave birth to this video. And more than anything, I hope you can catch yourself before you take those stairs all the way down to the bottom. Thanks again.